check out this amazing bike path. Isn't this incredible? Like, I'm in Marin, California, just north of San Francisco across the bridge. I'm hanging out with Brett Thurber from the New Wheel. How's it going?
Doing well.
Dude, thanks for showing me all your bikes today. I am really impressed with this new Gazelle. I thought it was Tio at first, and I was like, cool, Spanish for uncle, also means dude. But apparently no, it's the T10.
T10.
Right? And last year, 2016, was that there was something, the T8 or C8 or something?
C8.
Yeah. And what I noticed, and what we've been talking about here, is that a lot of the bikes remain the same. They're still very efficient, lower standover height because it's kind of that mixte frame. Would you call it mixte? I'd sort of call it mid-step.
I think that's the appropriate term, yeah, mixte.
Yeah, 3 sizes, really nice, relatively affordable, $29.99, especially for a Bosch-driven electric bike with the Powerpack 500 now, so higher capacity. I noticed they're doing, kind of mixing it up with the gray casing there. It looks nice, relatively sharp, sort of a black color scheme, reflective sidewalls on the tires, integrated lights. We got AXA Blue Line 30 up front, spinning a solo in the back, 25 kilogram max weight on that standard gauge tube rack with triple bungee cords. I mean, it's kind of what you'd expect. The AXA Defender, Cafe Lock, all those little extras that you get from like the European brands. Mm-hmm. This is high quality stuff, and the last time we were looking at a Gazelle, you were telling me about kind of the history, and they test their frames in marine and then like UV tanks and stuff. Can you remind me of the whole Gazelle Royal Crest thing?
Yeah, so Gazelle's been around for over 120 years. And they are Royal Dutch Gazelle because Royal is a designation for brands that are over 100 years mm-hmm. and that meet all of these sort of ethical standards.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of, you only get the Royal treatment one brand per sector.
So this is the only bike company?
It's the only bike company that's Royal.
Huh.
And they review it every, I think it's 5 or 10 years. And so you can get kicked out, which is really tragic. And you don't want to have that happen.
Would be a bummer.
You have to keep your, standards very high.
Well, they do a great job. And at the same time, bikes can get kind of expensive, so it's neat to see one that, at least in my view, I mean, it wasn't just a couple years ago you couldn't get a Bosch bike in the States for under $4,000.
Yeah.
So this one's, the $3,000, and it's a high quality bike. Yeah. I'm going to talk about some of the other features that I noticed. We've got this flick bell here. Nice to have. It's just a little extra, but it's higher quality than a lot of the flick bells I see on cheaper bikes. We've got the hydraulic disc brakes, 160 millimeter rotors, adjustable reach levers, which again is nice because we're looking at the smaller of the frame sizes here. It's about 18 inches. I've measured like the, reach, standover height and all that back at the review like I normally do, but it's just kind of cool. If you're a shorter rider, someone who's petite, you can fit onto this bike and feel like it's a little sporty or a little bit more active because the frame, just look at it, right? Like, it's not one of the wave step-through designs, and that keeps it lighter. This is 49.2 pounds versus we were looking at the wave style frame earlier. What was that one called?
The Arroyo.
The Arroyo, yeah, and it was like 58 pounds or something like that.
It's going to be heavier.
A little bit heavier, yeah.
This is spry and
spry, yes. I like, great word choice, Brett. So yeah, it's active, but it still has these extra little accents like a plastic chain cover that extends all the way back. That way when you're pedaling and stuff, your pants are going to stay dry and clean. Same thing with the fenders. I want to say these are like Curana or something. I don't know if that's the brand or what, but they're plastic with like a layer of aluminum alloy on the top and the bottom. So you get the flexibility, the light weight of plastic, but the stiffness and the quietness of aluminum alloy. And of course, steel fenders, they can get scratched and rust. So you don't see a lot of steel fenders these days. I just think it's a great setup. However, this bike's a little small for me. I have longer feet, and I noticed when I was really cornering tight, see how close that fender gets? Like I bumped my foot just a little, and I really should have my foot back, but that's something to be kind of wary of. You get a bike like this that can be ridden in any condition, in part because the integrated lights, they run right off that battery, and they're nicer than average. So you can aim them, it's got a reflector, and it's got these little side windows. So remember I talked about the reflective tires. You want to be seen from the side, especially with a black bike like this. Yes, it looks really nice. The cables, the motor, the battery, everything blends in because it's black. We've even got these sort of like mid-dish rims, a little bit more aero, kind of fun, 32-hole spokes. It's a really interesting blend of like active but still very utilitarian. Quick release wheels, front and rear, and there's those hydraulic disc brakes that I was talking about earlier. I also really like their kickstand because it does have adjustable length, And sometimes, you know, you're on a hill or something and you want to park your bike, you can just go down here without a tool and you can push in on this little silver button. Maybe you can see it down there. And then you can slide that plastic end piece up and down to really dial it in. I love how it stays out of the way too when you pedal backwards. These pedals they're decent as far as like plastic alloy with rubber grip. They're a little bit bigger, so you get more surface area, and if you slip off, you're not gonna cut your shins, but they are a little bit more slippery than if you got the BMX, like mountain bike pedals, and that's something that I think about replacing sometimes just because of the way I ride. There's the frame lock, also known as the cafe lock. It uses the same key as the battery, and Brett, will you pull down on that? So I'm gonna twist the key, and then see he inserts that rod. Okay, so then you can take out that key and you could leave your bike at the cafe for a moment while you dash in and just, it's less likely that someone's gonna hop on and ride it away. Here's the Powerpack 500. So I insert the key, maybe I have it the right way. There we go. Insert the key, twist it, and yeah, go ahead, Brett. So see, there's enough clearance here that you can get it out, but that's part of the reason that this tube can't be even lower. Shimano has like a steps battery design that comes out from the side. Bosch was able to keep their batteries backwards compatible by keeping the exact same plastic casing. It looks pretty nice, and it even has that loop on top. This is 5.7 pounds. When you're carrying that around, this is one of the more expensive parts of the bike. 36 volts, 13.4 amp hours, so it's roughly 500 watt hours. Can be charged on or off the bike with the same charging port. You don't need like a little dongle or any adapters like some of the other bikes. Bosch just does an incredible job, and because of the positioning of that battery pack, along with the motor, the bike feels really stable and steady when you're riding. It's just like low center of gravity. That's what you want. So coming back to this bike, it's a little bit more active, flat bar, you know, even just the seat style, the Celi Royale, but it's just a little bit more active. However, one compromise they've made is the adjustable angle stem right here. So it's roughly like 110 millimeters. And at first you're thinking like, oh, there's only one bolt. And if you've ever ridden one of these bikes for a long time with the adjustable stems, the really cheap ones, they get loose, and that's no fun. You don't want to have an issue where your bars are rattling around. This one, when you take off this little plastic cap here, check it out. 2 bolts and then an adjuster bolt. So there's like three points of contact there, really sturdy. And that's what I mean. It's compact, it looks nice. When you dig into this bike, it's much higher quality than some of the other ones. We've got 5 spacers here, so you could raise or lower that stem if you wanted to. Part of the reason it's a bit lighter than the other one as well is you don't have a suspension fork. This is an alloy, just a rigid fork, but it's relatively clean, it's sleek, it's lightweight. The seat post is 27.2 millimeters in diameter, and that's one area that I would explore personally for improving comfort. You know, bring those handlebars up a little bit, maybe get a suspension seat post. Do you have any favorites, Brett? Like, what do you recommend to people who want to add some comfort?
So first would be suspension seat post.
Yeah.
Like a body float or something.
Body float, yeah.
Second would be the grips. These are, the bike, it's really kind of a high performance feel.
Yeah.
And you're really connected to the road. But you may find that you want a little bit more padding on your hand for your hands.
A little thicker.
Thicker and with like a little bit of a palm support.
Mm-hmm.
That's easily done. So honestly, those 2 things can make all the difference. It's never going to be as cush as like a Arroyo, you know, like, but that's not what it's supposed to be.
Exactly. And depending on where you ride, this path is really smooth and it feels great, and you get efficiency because there's no bobbing and it's lighter.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed that these tires, so these are e-bike specific tires. These are the Schwalbe Energizer Plus, and I believe Energizers, that means like kind of electric bike specific. They have Performance Line Green Guard, so that's puncture protection, and they have a pretty broad PSI rating. It's like 55 to 85 PSI. So you could take it down a little bit if you wanted to soften the ride. Is that right? You sacrifice a little bit of efficiency.
Based on your weight. You don't want to do too low if you're a heavier rider.
Okay.
But
to get pinch flats that way, right?
You could, yeah. Okay. But no, totally. Run at a lower tire pressure and you'll just have more
sweet
comfort.
The measurement on these, by the way, I believe it's 28 by 1.4, so it's kind of the 700 by 35C hybrid tread. Schwalbe makes great stuff, and especially when you've got that puncture protection. That's something I think about. I've purposefully, well, here, let's finish up. We got the rack, 25 kilogram max weight. I think I mentioned it earlier. The big difference for this 2017 model versus 2016 it doesn't have to do with grips or any of these other, that's all roughly the same. Tell me about this. Tell me about the drivetrain, Brett.
So our number one complaint on this bike, what we liked was it's lightweight, it's nimble, it's really fun to ride. Our complaint was the internally geared hub on this bike, it just didn't quite match the way that you ride this bike. Internally geared hubs are really awesome for like a more leisurely paced bike.
Yeah.
That you're more set back and upright. But for a sporty bike like this, you want to be able to shift really quickly between the gears, and you want instantaneous performance.
And even lighter, because internally geared hubs tend to be a little heavier.
Heavier, yeah, exactly. So lighter too. And so that was our feedback. That and the tires last year were not quite as good. So those two things, and they listened, and now we have the T10, which is like, besides the upgraded battery, that is, when you ride it, it's really good.
So let's get closer on this thing. So we're talking about the Shimano Dior. This is a 10 sprocket drivetrain. I believe it's 12 to, I don't know, 20.
11 to 28.
11 to 28, yeah. That's great. You've got a number of different gears, and they're close enough that you can dial this in and ride on those lower assist levels and really go further. I categorize this as an urban commuter, but also potentially a touring bike. I mean, if you imagine having some bags or racks or something like that, how do you think it would hold up? And would touring, do you want more comfort, or what's the...
You probably want a little bit more comfort. I mean, this is the ultimate, city bike, I think.
CityZen.
CityZen.
Right.
It's like, it's narrow, you can zip around things, you can get through doorways really easily.
Through car. Yeah, that's a great point, Brett. These are even narrower than the Arroyo we were looking at before.
Yeah, and it lends the sort of quick handling and ride feel. It's lightweight, you can bring it up to your apartment, or, just easy maneuverability. So
nice, I appreciate that.
And durable, actually. The one other thing I wanted to just mention is the rims on these. These are these deep V rims. That's all about durability. So, if you shorten up the spokes and you have a lot of material on the rims,
that makes, because the dish, I'm used to like the deep dish rims, and it's kind of the fun city bike. So I was calling these mid dish. Do you think they're deep dish?
They're deep dish.
Deep dish.
They're deep dish.
Sweet, man. Well, thank
you. It's
you.
like Chicago style.
Yum. And he's making an excellent point here, because the spokes get to be a little shorter. Frequently, when I'm reviewing like the 20-inch bikes, I'm like, you get a mechanical advantage. The wheel diameter's smaller, but then the attack angle's higher. So these have the lower attack angle. They'll just span over cracks. They'll be very efficient. That when they get momentum, they keep rolling. There's this fun aerodynamic aspect, but really those spoke lengths, you hit it on the head, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. And then the other piece that's cool about this, of course, is what you interact with, which is the display panel up here. For people who are commuters in the city, I personally, I feel like maybe it's kind of a younger demographic sometimes. This is a bike, who buys this at your shop?
It's a wide range. It definitely skews younger. But it's kind of like an active adult sort of bike too.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, we live in, again, this area, you have fit people of all different ages. So I don't want to describe it based on age, but I wanted to say, if you're living in a city and you're carrying this up to your apartment or something, like you might be kind of tech savvy. I'm thinking the Bay Area, and this has that USB charging port on the side of the display, which I really love. I always call this out. 5 volts, micro USB. You could top off your phone, use your phone as a GPS, or an additional light. Sometimes you get like the Christmas lights on those fun ride events and stuff, and I like that. The Bosch Intuvia is one of my favorite displays, in part because it's removable. I think you guys have it locked down. There is the option to lock it with a set screw, but you can take the battery and the display off if you're parking in the city so that no one messes with it. It doesn't get scratched up. And then if you're putting this in your car, that's 5.7 pounds that you took off, maybe even taking off the wheels quickly. But keep in mind that the fenders aren't easy to take off, so if you're thinking you're going to lay this in the back of your car, that fender is still going to be sticking out, and that's something to sort of keep in mind. But I do love how lightweight and durable those are. Anyway, coming back to the display, very easy to interact with while you're riding. You can easily press those buttons without taking your hands off the grips, and the hydraulic brakes are very responsive. So, even just with a finger or two, you're going to be able to control yourself and then spot traffic. I am a big fan of just the bikes that are set up to be a little bit more upright or have this adjustability feature, because when I'm riding in traffic, I want to keep my head up, and sometimes you're like leaning forward like this and getting a neck ache. So, being able to, that's just me personally. Anyway, big display, very easy to see, comes on super quick, easy to read. Even when you're further back like this, you can see the speed, miles per hour right now. If you want to change that, hold reset and I. 5-tick battery indicator. Be nice if it was a percentage, but you know, you can get to a menu here by pressing I that says range, and range is totally dynamic. So I'm gonna go up to Eco, that's the lowest level of assist, and it's like based on half of the battery, how we've been riding over the past mile to get here, and Eco, it's saying, okay, you know, we think you can go 55 miles, and that updates on the fly. It's so cool. That's way more useful than the battery indicator. And then you go all the way up to turbo. You've got a big range here, 19 miles. This is the Bosch Performance Line motor, peaks out at 63 Newton meters, which is great. It's efficient because it's a mid-drive, and as you shift gears, you're empowering the motor, but it's powerful. And in those higher levels of assist, especially in lower gears, I mean, they use the same drive system on a lot of the mountain bikes. Now, some of the mountain bikes are switching over to the Bosch CX motor, but this has been more than capable in my experience. And you know, it's measuring several things: rear wheel speed with that magnet and sensor, pedal cadence and pedal torque 1,000 times per second. So you get a really fluid experience, and also shift detection. It's software driven, but basically it's kind of listening, and as you shift gears, there are these spaces where it makes it easier for that chain to go from one sprocket to the next. So that's key. That's something that some of the cheaper systems don't have. In addition to being backwards compatible, I feel like Bosch is going to be around. They're going to support their stuff, and if you buy a bike like this that you pay a little bit more for, the bike will last, and then you can upgrade the batteries if you want to.
Yeah.
So, tell me why you rode the Focus bike. Like, what's going on over there?
Well, they're siblings of sorts. They're both, Focus is part of the same parent company as Gazelle.
Okay.
And it's just another cool bike.
Yeah, it was kind of neat when we were talking earlier, and it was like, yeah, there's the Pond Group and Focus and Kalkoff, and Gazelle's the latest addition to the US. How do they differ from Kalkoff or from Gazelle?
Focus is more performance oriented, so you're gonna see some really cool stuff from them coming out in the next few months.
Sweet.
But their focus is high performance, a lot of mountain bikes, a lot of high performance city bikes. So a little bit more sporty versus Kalkoff, which is more kind of leisurely and commuting and your European city bike. Yeah. And Gazelle, which is your classic Dutch city bike.
I see.
Gazelle doesn't, as far as I know, they don't make any mountain bikes.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for helping me to place all this together and just the history about it and the quality. I feel like we've hit on everything that I wanted to discuss. Is there anything else you care to say about this?
Right. I mean, we're excited about it because the bike last year was $3,800. This year's $2,999.
Oh, that is a big jump.
We knew they were able to do that. It's just because they just came to the States and they were kind of setting things up. They weren't as aggressive as
like lower volume too.
Well, they were in a way, yeah. They do have to make commitments to Bosch because the drive system for the U.S. market is different. So they're starting to ramp things up, and Gazelle is capable of producing extremely high quality bikes at pretty reasonable prices. Yeah. Because they just have such volume, and you know they're the heart of cycling worldwide.
That's where it's at.
But this year they're really starting to show that. So that's, I mean, for $3,000, this is an amazing bike.
Cool. Thank you for that. I'm glad. Anything else? Any other nuggets of wisdom?
Yeah, come and do a test ride at your local dealer.
Test ride, right. And of course, you know, we're just down the street from the New Wheel. Their shop in Marin opened how long ago? Like,
we opened last year in July.
Last year. It's pretty incredible. We're going to do like a tour of the shop and stuff, but it's nice when you can actually get out there and ride on some trails and go up some hills and stuff when you're testing a bike. This is the charger, 4 amps, relatively portable, 1.7 pounds, and that's the interface. It's proprietary, so it won't accidentally get bent or kind of mixed up, plugged in upside down and create a problem. Of course, Bosch does a great job. They make power tools and dishwashers and everything. We strap that in on the, This is kind of cool. Putting that bungee to work. Love it, high five. And we got hop on this thing. Do you mind doing the first part on that? Yeah, it's fun to get the third party's perspective. Somebody had a sad day with coffee spill right here. And before we go, tell me about that bridge, Brett. What's going on here?
So if you've ever seen Dirty Harry,
Clint
Eastwood, this is the trestle that Clint Eastwood jumped. That trestle used to carry over that way, across, and then, you know, off towards San Rafael. And in that movie, Clint Eastwood jumps from the trestle down onto a bus right there.
Right over here.
Right next to our shop.
That is awesome. That's a really cool history. Fun. So we're gonna try to repeat the feat today. You're gonna hop down on the bus with the e-bike. Maybe not. That's true. Maybe with this one. Okay, so I'm gonna hop on this, powering it up. Same system. Actually, this might be the Bosch CX. Yeah, so this one's a little higher torque. Brett, yeah, let's go that way, Brett. And Brett's super tall, so this is like maybe not the right size for. I'm gonna go ahead of you real quick here. Beautiful. Nicely done. People always ask about hills and stuff. Do you have any tips about climbing and just in general how the Bosch system performs?
There's not a hill you can't climb, really. It only depends on the gears on the bike. So it's not about the motor torque, even the active line motor, honestly.
Yeah.
As long as you have a low enough gear to get into, you might not climb as fast as on the Performance Line, but you'll climb and you'll have an easy time of it.
I think it's great because it's measuring torque. As long as you shift down to a lower gear, even if you're stopped on a hill, as soon as you give it a little bit of effort, it kicks in pretty quickly.
That's the beauty of the mid-drive is, low enough gear and it can spin up anything. If you have to really huff and puff, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, and there is the shift recommendation thing here. So there's these little arrows. You might be able to see them faintly in the background, but they tell you to shift up or shift down if you're not getting it because they're trying to help you make the motor have an easier time. There's a light button, so you press that and it turns on both of those lights. Again, I just love how they're integrated, and there's a little power meter over here, the buttons. You get it. Let's do this. Okay, I'm gonna start out in turbo mode. You can't actually see the chainring spinning, but it spins at 2.5 revolutions for every crank arm revolution. And I think that gives the motor maybe like a mechanical advantage because it's higher RPM. Bosch also told me it helps to really grab the chain so you don't have slip happening. It seems to work well enough. Here we go. And that was super easy. We're up to 20 miles per hour. Kind of started off in a high gear. The range on this cassette, I actually think it's 12 to 28 or whatever, but on mountain bikes sometimes you have like 11 to 36 or 42 or something like that. But for the city, I guess you just don't need the climbing as much. And I tried to count the sprockets on the chainring. I think it's 15 or 16, so it's a little bit smaller. It feels pretty good. It's definitely, for this type of environment, it's getting the job done. Check this out, bicycle roundabout. Do some shifting here for that shift detection. Pretty nice. Just past the New Wheel shop back there. I've had a good time. Brett, thanks again for helping me film. So you're here in Marin. What's your website?
Newwheel.net.
Newwheel.net. Sweet. Well, thank you so much for the full written review on this and some other Gazelle bikes. I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. These guys also have a YouTube channel. It's kind of fun to check out. You carry a bunch of brands. So it's Reese & Mueller, Gazelle, Focus, Stromer. I think what's the brand that Faraday was recently joined the Pong Group? So some good stuff.
Yeah. Lots of brands.
Lots of brands. Have fun out there, you guys. Drive safe. Ride safe.